Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Getting Hammered. I'm Mary Katharine Ham. I'm here as I sometimes am, occasionally with my co-host Vic Mattis of the Washington Free Beacon. Vic, this is your morning show for any hour. Here we are, post-election. How you doing?
Hello, Mary Katharine. I don't even know how to begin anymore. I forgot what we did.
Me too.
We had segments, blocks, segues. I'm not really sure. I want to say that it's nice to see you, but I feel like I see you all the time on TV.
Sometimes,
so it's not like you're away, but you're not away. The other day, I heard my wife listening to you on your show with Carol Markowitz, and she immediately turned it off like she was having an affair. She's like, oh, no. I said, who was that? Who? That sounds like a familiar voice.
Who is that?
Who is that? She goes, oh, it was nothing. It was nothing. I'm to answer your question. Since our last episode of this really number one quarterly podcast of America, I'm doing great and busy running the Weekend Beacon. Please subscribe to the newsletter on Substack. There's two of me, at Vic Mattis and another one, Victorino. I'm at Vic Mattis, I think, is the one people need to follow. I really quickly, since we don't have that much time and so much to catch up on, especially with the news, I just want to say, I'm sure people are wondering this, I had a great annual physical.
Nice, good.
I didn't have to, I thought usually I have to game the system in order to score good numbers, but I've been doing this now for a while, so the numbers were just really great. I'm no longer pre-diabetic, which is really exciting. I had a very healthy prostate exam. I know people worry about that. Here's the thing, especially for men will be interested to know. They don't need you, if you're doing well and you're healthy, you apparently don't need that exam every year. But luckily, my doctor ignores that advice.
So nice for you.
Yeah, it was real. I was going to make a lot of jokes, but I won't. It's too early. We're getting started here. And I would say as far as weight is concerned, so cholesterol, triglycerides are way low. Everything is great. At my height, I think I weighed about 183, 184. And as some of you know, I'm about 5'7", which is apparently short in this area, but in New Jersey, it's about tall. It's fairly tall in New Jersey. Among the Italian and Filipino communities and Irish, I'm pretty tall. This morning, I weighed in at 156.6.
There you go.
From 183. So, and I would say, thanks in large part to your husband's great gift to me, the Power Press.
I love it.
I do it every day.
Steve's making it happen out there.
No, he does. I'm getting those results, so he'll be excited to hear that. And the other thing is, I'm just not having those Cheesecake Factory portions anymore.
Yeah.
I'm bringing stuff home, and I don't think there's a shame in that anymore.
See, the thing is, I think I could catch you on weight if I try a little.
Oh. You mean the other way around? The other way around?
No,
like
I'm going
you can
up.
Get up there?
I'm going up.
Oh yeah, going up. Yeah, no, I mean, Kate said.
If I put some
that
work
if
in between now and the end of the year, I think I could catch you.
I think the answer is bagels. If you like bagels, that's the way to go. And I mean, I just cut back on the carbs, things like that.
It does help.
And I have to tell you, the good news is I can now fit in those American Eagle jeans. So, how about those Sydney Sweeney ads? Did we talk about that? I can't remember.
I think we did because we had to. I mean, that's a subject matter
that was a big
you were
thing
an
at the
expert
time.
in.
Of course.
I was on the radio the other day, and I didn't overreact to it, but the host did refer to me as 5'3", and it's one of those things where like
that's like revelatory.
Well, it's one of those things where you're like, it makes no difference how tall I am, and I know it's vain for me to be like, oh, actually I'm 5'6". But actually, I'm 5'6".
Are you 5'6"? So I'm only an inch taller than you, and you're about the same height as Kate. Okay,
yeah,
all right, that's good. But that's a good height. That's a decent height for a woman.
But yes, it's above average, and it's a weird thing because there is this impulse to be like, actually, the radio listeners in New Hampshire didn't need to know my exact correct height, but I did feel the need to let them.
So you did let them know.
I didn't. I didn't. I kept my mouth shut.
Why would they mention your height?
Oh, he was just doing a general, like, sort of silly intro, funny intro, and it included that. And there was no issue with it. I just was like, oh, my little heart was like, I'm 5'6".
Well, I'll tell you, if a host said I was 5'3", I would definitely be vocal about that.
How dare, sir?
How dare, really? How are you?
I am good too. Let me do a brief. I actually have an update for you because it's a good thing we're doing this show, because I thought to myself the other day, the babies haven't broken anything in a long time. right? And I immediately
That's because at this point they're in high school.
right, and I immediately cursed myself. They are actually very big now. The babies are not little. The babies are 4 and 2.5, and they are gigantic. But they are still sharing that same room that they have destroyed many times in many ways. We have removed, just for the sake of the audience, we have removed a dresser that I refinished for them. They destroyed one lamp. I put an aluminum lamp in there thinking they wouldn't destroy that one. They destroyed that one also. They took 6 feet of chair rail off the wall. They have gouged the walls in all sorts of ways using all sorts of weapons. They've ruined the rug at least twice, but I did replace it one of those times. And
the air vent too, right? The cover to the air duct.
The clock, which was hung very high on the wall and yet somehow became a biohazard, removed that one. All of the... Yeah, you can try to piece that together if you want.
That's like a train spotting.
Yeah,
okay, great.
The art on the walls is gone. Everything's gone. Everything's gone. There remains a bunk bed. And so they hadn't messed up anything in a while because there's very little to mess up. And then as I was on this trip this week for election week, I happen to be in New Orleans right now. I gave a speech yesterday. I got a text from Steve telling me, they're making a ruckus in there now, and every time I've gone in after nap or to check on them in the morning, the little boy, who's 2.5, calmly walks up and hands me a screw. And it's like, I haven't figured out exactly where they're coming from.
Yeah.
And I'm just imagining that eventually the structure just fails. I don't know when it's going to happen.
It's from the chandelier.
So it may be that we'll have to upgrade the bed situation in there soon. It's not like the old one was nice.
Would you agree it's terrible 2s or terrible 3s?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I'm just have sweet kids or I just don't remember a lot of parenting, but I enjoy all this stuff. I feel like 3 and 4, 2.5 to 4 is fun because they start talking and they say the funniest things.
They do.
And so that sort of tempers the tantrums.
Yes, the
look at that.
terribleness.
Look what I did there. That tempers the tantrums. And and so, they're a little tantrumy, but we are also pretty consistent parents in saying that you do not get what you want from whining and screaming. And so they will modulate their tone so that they can get the things that they want. But I think 2 might be harder than 3 still to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
3 is medium rational. Now that's girls. I've had girls at 3. I haven't had a boy at 3.
You're about to find out.
Yeah. So we shall see. But anyway, speaking of loose screws, shall we talk about the election? Hey!
Oh man. Whoa, let's do it.
Alrighty, well, Vic.
Yes.
That was not a good night for Republicans. That was a very good night for Democrats.
You want me to spin it? I'll spin it. Fine.
Okay, spin it.
You are talking about 2 states in a city that voted for Kamala Harris, voting for Democrats. Big surprise. They were always going to win. Plus, traditionally, especially in Virginia, when you have one party's in the White House, it almost always is the opposite party. You have to go way back to maybe 1981 or whatever for that to happen in Virginia, and before that maybe the 1960s. So really no surprise there, except for it was pretty decisive.
It was the margins matter.
Oh, the polling.
Yeah.
We used to say ignore that Emerson poll or that Fox poll. Oh, that +7. That can't be true. And you go, Trafalgar. Hey, Trafalgar's pretty good. And then you believe what you want to believe. And it was. I'll tell you this: the night before the election, I was talking to a source in the administration, and that source said that they were anticipating a clean sweep by the Democrats, that this was going to happen. And I had really hoped that at least Jack Ciattarelli could pull it off. And I certainly hope people would have more common sense and decency to vote for Jason Miyares over Jay Jones.
Yeah.
That, to me, is the hardest election to digest.
Yes.
The rest of them, you could sort of explain it, but, does this mean that there's a coming blue wave? Does it mean that the only reason Republicans did bad is because Trump wasn't on the ballot? Or is it because of Trump that Republicans did bad? And does this mean that Trump would be like, well, I guess I have to run again? Mary Catherine, what is your take on all this? And is there going to be a blue wave? And of course, we need to get into not just Virginia and New Jersey, but also, of course, New York City. So what do you got for me?
Yeah, look, I think let me give Democrats their flowers first, lest I be accused of spinning too much. I think, look, these margins are large. Virginia and New Jersey are D+6 states. Harris won by about 5.8, 5.9-ish points in each of those states. I thought Virginia was pretty much donezo when Doge happened. Yeah. Because there are so many federal workers in Virginia, it is a quirky situation. Winsome Sears is not the candidate that Youngkin was. No. She has a much harsher vibe. I find her story compelling. I don't have an issue with many of her positions, but also that campaign was extremely quiet until like September. Yeah. And then she did, I think, try to take advantage of some of these cultural issues in Northern Virginia where these huge scandals were happening. Yeah. Anyway, I thought that one was probably iced after Doge happened. And then the government shutdown happened, and I was like, that's not going to go well. Yeah. I hoped that Miaris was playing for a win because I hoped that there weren't enough early votes banked and that people would undervote for AG.
That's an excellent point about the early vote.
Yeah, that did not come to pass. He didn't lose actually very much at all, and in fact did quite well in the state, and that worries me on just a governance and safety level. Yeah. I am concerned about that. But these are like, I think Spanberger had like a 14-point spread and Cheryl a 13-point. Now what's interesting about this is that I thought New Jersey would be much closer. I thought that was the one where you were in spitting distance with Chitterelli. Right. I thought he was active and competent in his campaign. I hoped that New Jersey might hedge against Mamdani, like that New Jersey voters would be like, "Oh, that's a little like a bridge too far for us, but we're next door. We can go the other direction." So both of those women performed extremely well. I don't find either of them very compelling as candidates, but what they did is embody boring suit normie-ism, like CIA/military mom. I care about the things you care about. I'm going to talk about groceries. And that is really important. Even though Abigail Spanberger's moderation was just that. It wasn't actually moderating, because when she was asked about the cultural issues, such as the 50-something sex offender being in girls' locker rooms in Northern Virginia, she was like, leave that to the locals. It's not, she wouldn't, there was no.
Who is she to decide, really? You know, it's a complicated issue.
Yeah, there was no nod even to like, hey, you know, this does seem like some of the guardrails are down. Now, I thought Emily Jashinsky put it very well. She said, tonight is good evidence that some of what felt like the future during peak woke won't work without being tethered to affordability issues after the vibe shift. Want to talk about girls' sports? Great. Frame it as an elite fixation and tie it right back to your message about jobs, taxes, corporate power, etc. I think that's correct. The locker room thing, the girls and boys sports, they are an indicator that these people don't care about the things you care about. And that's why that message worked for Trump. Yeah. Because his was tied to an affordability argument where he's like, Biden has screwed all this up and I would like to fix it for you. The reason Biden screwed it up is because he's paying attention to this issue, right? So those things have to go together. And for Earl Sears, they didn't go together. She only did the culture ones, whereas Abigail Spanberger just sidestepped the culture ones and was like, let's talk about groceries. So that's winning formula.
Yeah, and of course, you know, in the big debate between Earl Sears and Spanberger, Winsome Earl Sears did not do well. And she did a lot of interrupting. And she wanted,
her clips were pretty good. The overall,
she wanted to put Spanberger on the spot, especially with regards to Jay Jones' insane texts and the things that he have said. Yeah, but she and you would think that the ads that show Spanberger not responding and just being sort of stone-faced would work against her, but apparently doubling down and not, panicking, shall we say, and saying she's going to withdraw her endorsement of Jay Jones. No. I mean, it was a full Ralph Northam here, where we're gonna, it's fairly obvious how bad it is, and she's gonna stick with him. And
it's interesting.
All of a sudden, there he is. He's gonna be our next top law enforcement officer in the state of Virginia is somebody who says maybe more cops should die and putting 2 bullets in the head of Todd Gilbert.
By the way, was convicted of reckless driving and did his community service for his own pack in violation of the law.
That's right. 116 miles an hour. 500 of those 1,000 hours were spent on his pack, and somehow that's all okay.
Oh, okay. Well, it's interesting because Spanberger did throw Northam overboard back when she asked for him to resign, because I guess a 25-year-old picture of you in blackface is worse than wishing that the then current Speaker of the House Republican should be murdered, and also his children. Okay, listen. What we know is that going after that, the literal murder texts, was not politically effective. Now, our friends on the left think that's a big own. I'm like, I don't think that's a big own. But some of them argue look, this is what Trump has wrought. And I'm actually there's a part of me that gets that argument that they're making. I would not, pull the lever for a Republican who said those things. I think a good analog is Roy Moore in Alabama, who Republicans rejected during the Trump years for his various crazy things. I wouldn't have pulled the lever for Jay Jones on our side. I would have said he should get out of the race. The thing that gets me is the lack of memory for, say, I don't know, the Lion of the Senate Democrat literally killing someone. Yeah. Or the other guy in Senate Democrat leadership who was a Klan
the
member.
Former Grand Klaxon. Yeah, so Senator Byrd.
That was, those guys, waitress sandwich and Klan guy, were the top of the Democratic Party when I was coming up in politics.
Right.
So forgive me if I don't think the problem started. Oh, also credibly accused sexual assaulter, Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
So forgive me if I don't think that started in 2015. That's my only quibble.
Right. It's the technology that has changed and made people more aware of it. If you think about social media and texts, this is how it all started. This is where people can go back in their short-term memory just to Trump, because that's when everything started to really happen. With Trump, of course, look, he has said some terrible things, but they're mean and they're vindictive, but grabbing women by this or whatever. And could you imagine, though, if Trump said, 3 people, his political opponent, whose family he knows, and Hitler and Pol Pot, and you have 2 bullets, and I'll put 2 of them in his political opponent. Yeah. And I really wish that the mother could have the children die in her arms so that she could change her opinion. And also sending his opponents awash in something, as you know, on their graves. Yeah. I don't think that Democrats would be like, let's look at the totality of his career.
Yeah. This is, to me, the specific excusing and even lauding of political violence as a means to change people like me, my mind, I find disturbing, particularly in a top law enforcement officer. But here we are. So he will be the top law enforcement officer in Virginia. And, that is how elections work.
And as you go ahead.
There are some people who are like, you shouldn't be upset about this. And I'm like, I feel like I can stay upset about this.
Yeah, totally be upset about this, because, if you look at the numbers for the number of people in Arlington, in Virginia who voted for Jay Jones, I think in Arlington it was something like 75%, whatever, that don't have a problem with what he said. And it's not what he said when he was in high school or college. Yeah. This is him as a lawmaker just a few years ago, which is really disturbing. And again, props to Audrey Fahlberg, at National Review for breaking that story. To me, I find very, very bothersome that they don't have a problem. They rationalize it, and they also think, well, nobody knows how I'm voting in the voting booth, so I can easily do that. And I still prefer that over somebody like Jason Miyares, who is probably in, Trump's pocket or something like that.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at processing election losses because, I don't really like any of these people anyway. Yeah. But that one is a sore spot. Beyond that, look, I think we saw, in particular, and this is obviously these are small races and they're very specific. Mm-hmm. But if you're looking at places that are swingy, like Bucks County, the swing county of the swing state outside Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, and you see a bunch of local races go into the left, many of them nationalized based on immigration or economic issues, then that's a problem. That's a problem.
Yeah.
And I think the general annoyance with both parties means that you have to actually make arguments to these folks. I think we got a test of whether many of the non-high propensity voters, the lower propensity voters that Trump attracted in 2024, whether they would come out or whether they would swing back to Democrats. It certainly wasn't pulling the lever for Republicans. And, we've talked about that the young men in particular, like, these people aren't adhered to the party. They're brand new voters. Jake Sherman notes that 2 heavily Latino counties in New Jersey that Trump won in 2024 swung back to the left. Sherrill flipped Passaic and Cumberland counties and improved Harris's margin in Hudson County by a double-digit advantage. So that is an early sign for Democrats that, like, these voters are very much on the table. Now, whether they will always turn out is another question.
Right. Apparently, it depends on who's running in terms of the candidate, and a lot of these people preferred obviously Trump over Kamala Harris. It's not a matter of them also. If you think about Latinos or you think about black voters, it's not a matter of them. They're staying home because Trump is not necessarily the story right now. He's not on the ballot. It looks to me that they actually switched.
Yeah.
Not just stayed home, but they actually went to vote. At least I think. Last in 2024, it might have been, Trump getting, I think voter turnout among Hispanics was like 16% versus now maybe it's 12 or 10%. So, there's a slight decline, but still, that's a lot of people who switched over. And you talk about Passaic County and all these places. Yeah, Virginia's back to blue. And now you have 4, 8, we're going to go on 12 years of a Democratic governors in the Garden State. And the other, the outrage for me with Mikey Sherrill, among many, is that she considers pork roll to be gross.
How dare?
How dare? I wouldn't even, even if she called it Taylor ham, I'd give her something of a pass. But to say it's gross, and you know why she says it's gross? Because she's not from New Jersey.
You know what? That's a J.
She's from the D.C. suburbs.
That is a J. Jones level offense, if I've ever heard one.
Yeah, absolutely.
And both of them got away with it.
Yeah, she put 2 bullets in the pork roll. Sorry. So there's a lot to be worried about when you look at both New Jersey and Virginia, and certainly in Virginia, when you look at the state races, a lot of that shifted.
Oh, yeah.
From red to blue now. So I don't know what happens. What Republicans have their work cut out for them for 2026. That is for sure.
I believe in the last 10 years or so, it's gone from a state level Republican supermajority to now nearly a Democratic supermajority. I haven't checked the exact numbers, but it's been an arc, and these things tend to spiral. So if you look at, say, the GOP in Colorado, where they started losing power, often party operatives are like, I think the answer is just to be more, guys. We should be more. And they sort of go off the deep end. I think that could certainly happen to the Virginia GOP, having put Youngkin in office in, I think, a sort of a unicorn of a situation in 2021, but he was a great candidate. And it was the perfect moment for him. And as one of my friends on X is always pointing out, Eileen really activated military voters specifically who were very mad about school closings. And he pulled it off. He was very popular. He remained very popular throughout his tenure. By the way, if Virginia didn't have that dumb rule about not being able to run again, they can only run for they can only do one term consecutively. They can't do consecutive terms. We'd be having a very different conversation right now, probably.
Yeah. And also, and at the same time, I'd like to add, Terry McAuliffe really stepped in it during that race.
Oh, that too.
He said that, teachers should, parents should defer to teachers in terms of guiding their children during that debate, and that really helped.
So, yes, so the losses go deeper than just the headliners. You don't want to overread, certainly, this is like a midterm, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an
but
off year.
I think it's a really loud signal. I tweeted back in March that throwing tariffs and negotiations with 160 plus countries on top of a somewhat fragile economy that you were inheriting from Biden, thus sending a very loud signal that you were explicitly raising prices in some cases, and you were the person responsible for it.
Yeah. No,
is a political misjudgment.
Right. And then people will go back to, because we have all this well documented, Trump saying that when he takes office that everything is going to go down, the prices are going to go down. And certainly things like gas are down, but inflation is up and people are angry that prices are still very high. And his whole tariff plan was, of course, short-term pain, long-term gain. We're still in the short term, but what is in that short term? This off-year election.
Yeah.
And so people are not happy about that, as you mentioned. That is not going to be his takeaway, though, is it, Mary Catherine?
No, I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to
Yeah.
be. He also, by the way, runs the risk, and this is what I think, so many parties, movements, after they win a presidency, get so big for their britches. And look, you should celebrate. You should have your moment. You should try to get things done. With Obama, it was demography is destiny. There's no way Republicans will ever win these people ever again. It's done. Thanks, Obama. Moving on. Let's perfect this union by making it more liberal. And it turned out that wasn't the case, of course, and Trump came along and disproved it. Trump is like, great, I got my mandate. I do all the tariffs. And he got a little too big for his britches on tariffs, which, as you and I have noted in the past, were enacted under this emergency statute that I think is likely unconstitutional for him to take action under it. And that was heard before the Supreme Court this week. And it didn't sound great for him.
No,
in the questioning.
Something tells me on our next episode, we'll have a big decision. That'll be rendered before the next episode.
Yeah.
But no, you could tell that they're suspicious. A lot of the justices are about, using a sort of a state of emergency or a state of war in order to justify tariffs broadly, whereas I think what they want is something more specific per country. And you're going to see, that's going to be a big deal when that happens.
And he's going to get real mad about it.
He's going to get very mad. He's going to get mad at the justices who he helped, who were supposedly conservative but now are not conservative but it really has nothing to do with that.
No, and people are making that.
It's just doing his will. So
too many people on the right-ish or MAGA Trump supporters, too many people are making the argument it would be, including Scott Bessent sometimes, it would be a real pain to return all these tariffs, so they can't make the decision that they're unconstitutional. I was like, nope. That's a thing you figure out before you do the tariffs.
Before you do it.
They're not supposed to make their decisions based on whether it will be tough. It's either constitutional or it's not. I'm sure, that was a basis of some of the questioning and is part of their consideration, but it's either legal or it's not. Speaking of angry, Mamdani seemed pretty, a little shift in his tone when Zoran Mamdani took the stage at his victory party in New York City. And again,
it's kind of like when Stalin assumed power after Lenin died. And now everyone better run for the hills.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a very aggressive speech. Van Jones on CNN noted that it was a very aggressive speech and said this is sort of an unwelcome change of tone for people who, because not everybody in New York voted in this election, although the turnout was high compared to other mayoral elections. Yeah. And they're tuning in going oh, that's not what I had heard he was doing. Carol and I normally had clocked that he had switched his argument in the closing days from a lot of affordability to identity. And I think identity politics is his home. I think that's
his bread and butter.
That's where he wants to be.
Yeah.
He's
again, he decided to get more actively involved in politics because of Israel, and not Israel in a good way, but Israel in a bad way. And so, people forget that is his origin. It's not, we need to do something about affordability, rents, and the price of groceries. It was about, Palestinians, and he was all over that. And you're right. Even Van Jones, I think, noted that on CNN, where he
in the
said
New York
that
Times said
it sharp. It just sounded a little bit more sharper edged.
Yeah, the New York Times called it shedding his conciliatory tone, which I thought was
now that he won, why not?
Pretty good way of putting it. It was aggressive in a couple of ways. One, he wants to be the foil to Trump, and as Carol always points out, I think the identity stuff and the foil to Trump is the refuge of someone whose policies are gonna fail.
Yeah.
Right? He's going to turn to that.
It's thin. Yeah.
But he was very bold about his policies as well. He's like, we're setting the expectations high and we're going to meet them. And those buses they're going to be free and safe and fast. They're not. Absolutely not going to be that. The rent freeze is going to somehow create more affordable and housing with no new supply. So that's going to happen.
It's, the answer to all of it is, of course, taxing the billionaires,
Right.
who will never, of course, they would never decide to leave the city of New York. Why would they ever want to do that? They'll all want to stay and be taxed to death. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, it really has allowed a lot of these people to now say socialism and democratic socialism is now acceptable. I think it was Jamal Bowman who said that socialism is not a dirty word anymore, right? Or at these victory parties, Hassan Piker is another one who said, quote, "This is a country that defeated the USSR, unfortunately." And that's where they are. But you mentioned Mamdani wanting to make it sort of him versus Trump.
Right.
The Republicans and Trump would love nothing more than that to be the case. He, as a 34-year-old now governing the largest city in America and one of the most important cities in the world, is going to soon be completely intoxicated by power and want that also to be the case, him versus Trump. And I don't think anything good is going to come out of that.
I think that will end up absolving him from having to accomplish things. And there are many things he can't do that he wants to do because of the way that his office is set up. And that will be a good thing for New York City. I think on the crime front, things are going to look worse pretty quickly, given what he said he wants to do and what he can do. So I would be concerned about that if I were living in New York City.
Yeah. The head of FDNY, he said he's going to be stepping down. And Jessica Tisch, who is the New York NYPD commissioner at the moment, I'm not sure what she's going to do. Mamdani said that, he'd love for her to stay on, which would be interesting because she's done a good job in terms of bringing down that murder rate. At the same time, they actually had not met when he said that he'd like her to, stay on. It's not like they're communicating. Right. He just said, because maybe he figured that'd be the popular thing to say. And a lot of times his hands are going to be tied because it depends on state law. It's going to depend on, Kathy Hochul or Albany to these things that he wants to have happen, and everything is magically going to be cheaper. It just, no. I mean, he pushed for it. He wanted to end cash bail, right? So, there are things we know that he does want to do that aren't great.
Well, and he wants the social workers instead of the police to respond to things, which, by the way, puts a lot of people in danger. I mean, these are very dangerous calls that police have to go out on.
A lot of people are not well out there.
Yes. So, I'm concerned about that part. And Hochul is facing a challenge from Elise Stefanik for the governor's race. So it will remain to be seen how popular Mamdani is and how much she will do to help him. Obama has sort of hedged on Mamdani. He's called him to give him guidance, but is you can tell, sort of unwilling to go all the way in on this guy. Yeah. I think it will be helpful to Republicans that he's the face of the party. However, Republicans have plenty of their own issues to deal with in the next year, as we've talked about with tariffs and addressing affordability. But the young women problem for Republicans is analogous to the young men problem for Democrats in 2024. And by the way, as we were saying, it looks like they've clawed back some of that. Young men, such that they were, that turned out, did vote for Spanberger and for Cheryl and for Mamdani. And young women, who, by the way, are the higher propensity demographic. Yeah. Young women get out to vote more often than young men do. So they're a safer demographic to have in your coalition. They were like 78 to 80% for each of these candidates. So if Republicans do not work on convincing, peeling off any of those young women in the future, they will end up in the exact same position. They're always basically already in the same exact position as Democrats are with young men and have been in 2024, which spelled a disaster for them.
I was thinking about just now, after Trump announced the ceasefire in the Middle East, and you think about all the amazing things that have happened and the return of the hostages. And a Republican consultant was in my office, and he just said, "Enjoy the moment now because it's not going to last." And, and of course this happened. But you're right. In terms of the voters, they certainly turned out in droves. Young people, young women, college educated, obviously, for Mamdani.
Yeah, big split in education. The realignment still exists in the split in education.
Yeah, and sure. Native New Yorkers, those who were born in the city or lived there for at least 10, 15 years, they voted, a majority of them or a plurality of them, for Cuomo over Mamdani. Mamdani really won over young transplants with college degrees and higher.
Yeah. But I think, again, Republicans learned from Democrats. All Democrats did was trash men for 20 years. Yep. And it's not going to help to have your fringe trashing women instead of trying to talk to people. Yep. And I think the other thing is that look, you and I are like, socialism doesn't work. This is a terrible idea. Why are we engaging in this? That's not enough because a lot of young people have been taught that socialism's great and that it works everywhere it's tried.
Oh, right. Venezuela is great.
Right. And I think in large part, whether it's Trump or Obama or Biden, we have paid the price for a while for a lot of economic illiteracy.
Yeah.
And, maybe just get everyone a copy of Basic Economics for Christmas. I don't know.
That sort of Adam Smith, The Wealth of Nations, or maybe a little bit of Hayek would help.
Yeah. I'll suggest it in my women's book club.
Exciting.
Group.
Yes.
Like, I think we should read The Road to Serfdom.
Right, The Road to Serfdom. Okay.
And play some Mahjong.
Yeah, right. Witness. So, no, I was going to say, what these young people know is that everything is so expensive. They can't afford to live in the city and pay for the rent is too high. So therefore, capitalism is not working for them. But socialism could possibly work because this young guy is telling us, and he's really cool, that we can get all these things if we just, tax the rich or whatever. And probably socialism has never really been tried, is what they're going to say.
I know.
And so here we are.
Here we are.
Mary Katharine, do you want to weigh in on Heritage Foundation?
Do
you want to? You don't have. You can say pass if you want to say pass.
No, I don't need to say pass. Right. I've been talking about it all week. Right. A real cell phone here.
Yeah, what's happening?
Okay, so briefly, in case you haven't been following this, and frankly, I don't want to be involved in the ecosystem of the Groypers, right? Like, I don't want to know the hierarchy of Pepe the Frog versus Nick Fuentes, but I do know enough to know that once Nick Fuentes is on Tucker Carlson's show and Tucker Carlson does not ask him a bunch of really critical questions and instead basically agrees with him about a bunch of stuff and sort of launders his very racist, very misogynist views into normalcy, that I then have to talk about Nick Fuentes. And when I talk about Nick Fuentes, I was going to say, I don't want you as part of my movement. So that's where this originated. And when he hosted Nick Fuentes on this platform, the Heritage Foundation, whose head, Kevin Roberts, is friends with Tucker, as many people are in the higher echelons of the Republican Party, there was pushback, I think, from Heritage Foundation, which is a storied conservative think tank on the Hill in Washington.
A lot of donors, too.
Donors pushed back and said, like, hey, what's going on with Tucker? And the Heritage Foundation had partnered with Tucker on his podcast for a while, and either that came to a close or they were moving on, and some webpage was removed. And Roberts, friends with Carlson, got the message, oh, they want us to cancel Tucker, and we can't have that, and we're not going to stand for that. So he did a straight-to-camera video saying that the venomous coalition attacking Tucker would never keep him from associating with Tucker, nor the Heritage Foundation from associating with Tucker. And it had a lot in it that was very bad.
Yeah. Look.
And since then, they've been in meltdown.
Yes. Okay. So a couple things for you. One, as you know, you and I, we both knew Tucker, right? We were friends with Tucker. He blurbed my book, Vodka. It's still an honest blurb. It's a good blurb. But
we'll stand by that opinion.
I'll tell you what, in case for our Groyper listeners out there, do get the book. It's blurred by Tucker Carlson. But
I think the paperback of mine is also blurred by Tucker Carlson.
Yeah. Yes. Thank God mine never made it to paperback. I would say it's so concerning for me why or how he went down this very dark path. I don't know why or what's going on in his mind. And as for Nick Fuentes, the less said, the better. Obviously, everything he says, I just find it really offensive, particularly personally. I take a personal offense to his opinion on interracial marriages.
Yes, how dare.
I'm really big on that. It's really good for the gene pool. I'd like to point that out. Okay, that's just me. I'm like the exact opposite. But what do you make of the video and audio that came out of the private Heritage meeting with the staff where Kevin Roberts said to excuse him, number one, because it was a script given to him in the video, given to him by his now former chief of staff that he thought was signed off on, but it wasn't, and that he said, quote, I don't consume a lot of news. I follow sports.
Yeah, these seem like bad excuses.
First of all, that's my excuse. I don't follow news. Come on, man.
We're allowed to make that excuse. We don't run a $1 million budget.
Could you imagine if I said I don't read a lot of books and I'm the books editor? Oh, wait a minute, that is my excuse. Yeah. But no, I mean,
I read a lot of book reviews.
I read a lot of book reviews that make me just as erudite. I would say that what he probably really wanted to say is he spends most of his waking hours raising money, but he didn't want to really say that. But the idea that he doesn't follow news, come on, man. Okay.
Well, I don't like this idea that anything you have to say about this that's not supportive of Tucker or Fuentes is somehow cancel culture. Like, it's very easy to say that the guy who explicitly, Nick Fuentes, says Hitler's super cool
and Stalin
and uses Heil Hitler on a regular, that I can't just be like, no thanks to that. That's not infighting. That's not cancel culture. That's just rational.
Yeah, don't platform it.
I don't think these are good excuses from Roberts. I think they probably will make donors and employees continue to be concerned about his leadership, because if you're tripped up on something like this, if indeed that's what happened, and you didn't have the good judgment to say, this might interfere with my main job, which is fundraising from good faith people, then that would be a problem. And there's an argument too that like this infighting keeps us from winning elections, and like, look, sometimes a circular firing squad does do that. In this case, like, this is a fairly quick dust up. I think that it seemed like a little bit of a trial balloon for no enemies to the right.
Yeah.
And many people in the movement were like, no, that's not for us. By the way, kudos to Dana Lash for putting Roberts on the spot.
Yeah.
And really asking him tough questions from a pro-conservative, friendly, we want this organization to work position, which, by the way, Fuentes doesn't want this organization to work.
No.
He's not a fan. He's not a fan of Trump.
No.
Even.
No, my big fear, of course, is that this is all going to come to a head in 2026 and then 2028. And the Republicans have to deal with that problem. Democrats have their own problem because they have their own insurgency coming from the far left. And people, obviously, Nancy Pelosi is going to retire. Chuck Schumer is going to be in trouble if AOC challenges him. So Hakeem Jeffries should be worried, too. They have their own problems. So we'll see what happens there. Go ahead.
Oh, quickly, I was going to say this, and this is like the thing is like, if you get too big for your britches, or if you leave the crazies to their own devices, so they're just pulling screws out of the bed frame, like, you're going to end up with problems. The Beckett Adams summarized the New York Magazine piece on the up and coming Democrats. Yeah. So like, while the right is trying to quell this part, the crazies in their own coalition, who I would argue aren't even in the coalition. Like, I don't think they're interested in anything, Trump or conservatism, which I find to be different things. But this is what they're working with. In a glossy spread published this week by New York Magazine's Intelligencer, the publication gushed over the 25 youngish Democrats to watch. Among those listed are, as the most promising politicians of the next generation, are a man who believes he's a woman, a mayor who threw a coloreds-only Christmas party, a self-proclaimed Gen Z influencer indicted for obstructing federal officers, an oysterman who until a few weeks ago sported a sizable Nazi tattoo on his chest, and an eco-radical former congressional chief of staff known best for buying his position with campaign donations and being in favor of the $90 trillion Green New Deal. Yeah. So everyone's trying to get their loose screws under control.
Yeah, keep an eye on that Graham Plattner from Maine, the oysterman, who went to Hotchkiss for a year. Yeah.
Yes, one of the lessons from Jones is going to be that that's A-okay.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. You'll see he's going to stick it out. He's lost his finance director, his treasurer, his campaign manager. But I wouldn't be surprised if he managed to gut this one out, because people are like, maybe he didn't know about that skull and crossbones Totenkopf with a Totenkopf. Yeah. Okay.
And I didn't know about the waitress sandwiches. Sure.
With Chris Dodd, by the way, we can't leave him out of that one, so to speak.
One of my first times in Washington, I had lunch at La Brasserie, and someone was like, this is the place.
This is the place. You might have been in the actual table that got knocked over. Oh. On our next episode, I wanted to ask you about the Neo home robot. That is the AI robot butler. Would you get one?
Absolutely not. Mm-hmm. Absolutely not.
Okay. I wouldn't get one unless you could, make them look like an actress from Harry Potter.
God,
I'm talking about Maggie Smith, Professor McGonagall. What are you talking about, Mary Catherine?
What am I thinking?
I don't know what you're thinking of. That's who I was thinking of. She's great.
There was a hilarious video of a guy who bought one of those robots, and the thing is running into mirrors. He's like coming straight at the owner of the robot, not even intending to hurt him, but like it could get very bad.
But it's a literal C-3PO. Yeah. Okay.
C-3PO was refined.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if this is C-3PO.
Again, apologies for this shorter episode. It was really nice to see you.
Good to see you too.
I can't wait till we do this again. That's going to wrap up this episode of Getting Hammered. Remember, you can subscribe to Mary Catherine Ham's Substack for updates, and mine too, at Vic Mattis. You can follow me always on Twitter at Victorina Mattis, and stay tuned for our next episode.
I'm at MK Hammer on X. I'm at MK Hammer Time on Instagram. Thanks for getting hammered responsibly. We will see you
That's right.
another time.